my face away.
Okay. Yeah, so of note, if we record and we share it, if you want to change your name or go off screen for that, feel free, just if folks have concerns. So I'm going to admit Michael Coles. I don't know Michael. Do you know Michael, Mary?
Yes, he's a
Okay,
member.
great. I don't recognize the last name. And I'll welcome Sarah Tuttle Singer. Oh, yeah. Michael, welcome. Michael, welcome. And Remy, who has joined, and Judd. And Sarah, welcome. Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, it's Shavua Tov here.
Shavua Tov. Different timing. It's already nighttime. Okay.
All right. Hi, Sarah. Hi from Tel Aviv. I want to thank everyone. We're going to have more people joining us probably throughout the in the next few minutes, but I want to welcome Sarah. Sarah Tuttle is the new media editor for the Times of Israel. I've known Sarah for a few years now. We've been with the, how long have you been with Times? 10 years? 8 years? 7 years? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Hi. Connect with you. I've been with Times of Israel since 2012.
Oh, good. And she's the author of a book that I'm going to post the link in your in the chat, the Amazon link. She's the author of a book called Jerusalem Drawn and Quartered, and it's her experiences in all the different quarters of the old city of Jerusalem. It's photos and creative writing. She's also a author of many beloved essays about Israel and motherhood and whiskey and coexistence. And what other all kinds of interesting topics. She speaks to audiences all over, and she's very busy tonight. She has a long request of people who need her help right now. Anyway, thanks, Sarah, for joining everyone here in cold. I'm in Tel Aviv, but these guys are in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mary, for connecting us. It's an honor to be here, for being able to share this space. I understand that there was an eclipse. Was there a solar eclipse just now? Were you? That's cool. Yeah. Wow. So while you're reading, it's Torah portion, Breshit, right? There's evening and there was morning and that solar eclipse. Wow, this is quite special and quite meaningful.
Yeah.
So what I thought I would do is read a bit from the diary I've been keeping since this all began a week ago, week plus. Oh, now it's hard to fathom. And then I can open this up to some questions. And I will also include my email and my WhatsApp contact in the chat in case we don't get to every question. I can be available to connect personally off of the Zoom session. But before I begin, as I know you know, the headlines have been horrific. The stories are even worse. And the things I'm about to share reflect that. I'm not mincing any words. And so there may be some imagery that can be challenging. So I first want to make sure there are no young kids listening in to this. Okay, and if that's the case, great, then I can proceed. But also, if you need to step away, you need to turn down the volume and not hear me speak, or if you need to walk away from the computer, I understand. And these are difficult times, and we all have to do what we can to protect ourselves, emotionally speaking, as well as physically. So with that said, I will begin. And if anyone is unmuted, if they can mute themselves, I'm hearing some background noise, which then is maybe feeding back into my, great, perfect. Okay, thank you. It's Saturday morning, and the sirens come one after another here in Jerusalem. I've lost count already, and my coffee's cold. Just across the road from our home, a salvo of fireworks and gunfire too. A truck rumbles by, and cars beep their horns. A young shepherd herds his sheep down the hill toward the desert in silence. Our neighbor's son just got his orders to show up for military duty. He can't say where he's going, but we know. The blue morning trembles. and the birds don't know which way to fly. It's Saturday afternoon, and we watch the news in shock and horror. These aren't just rockets, which is terrible enough. Our country has been invaded by murderers, by monsters. Our people are being slaughtered. It's Saturday night, and Jews in Israel who keep Shabbat and Chag are just coming back online. They've heard rumors, maybe they've even heard real reports. And those here in Jerusalem or throughout the south and the center of the country have certainly heard sirens. And my son's friend's sister is missing. Her name is Shiraz. She's the cool big sister and the fun babysitter, the smart, lively girl that everyone loves. She was last seen near Netivot, and the last known contact with her was just after 7 a.m. when the massacres began. I hope we'll have good news soon. I think about all the others missing and all the others who've been murdered already. The numbers, they just keep rising by the moment. In an Israel that is often fragmented and so often fraught, where we're so often divided between our differences, when there is horror like this and tragedy, we come together as family. Sunday morning, and I'm safe right now, but I'm not okay. It's Sunday afternoon. And they found Shiraz's body lying in scorched and blood-soaked earth, mangled and barely recognizable. I have no words. I watched her grow up from a bubbly teenager to a vivacious young woman ready to take on life with a full embrace. Her mother is also one of the most radiant people I know and one of the kindest, and my heart breaks for them all, and I won't lie to you. I'm full of rage right now, too. Full of so much rage I can barely swallow, can barely breathe. It's Sunday night. I don't understand how anyone can see the carnage Hamas themselves are posting on social media and still support them. What kind of people celebrate when babies are ripped from their parents' arms and women are raped next to the corpses of their friends and old women are butchered on a Facebook live stream? Where is your moral compass? Friends outside of Israel, please see this, see us, and say something. It's Monday afternoon. My friend Omar is originally from Gaza, and he sent me a message. He writes, Sarah, I realize my words change nothing and mean very little, but I am so sorry for what my people are doing to yours. Omar is mistaken about his words not changing anything or meaning anything. His words pierce the darkness with light. They do more than he can imagine. His words are an entire universe. It's Monday night and my son calls me from his dad's house. He's on his way to sit with his friend, Shiraz's younger brother. What do you remember about her? I ask my son. Oh, she was really nice, he says. She was funny. She drove me home sometimes when I would play at their house. And I remember when she dropped me off, she never drove away until she could make sure I got into the house. And this one time a car was blocking and she couldn't see if I got in. So she parked and followed me to the door. A moment passes. Mom, are you crying? He asks. Later on Monday night, my friend Rabbi Michael Davis writes on Facebook, and he says, we need to remember this isn't just hundreds of people murdered. It's one and one and one and one and one. It's Tuesday, and I remember back in 2014, the kids and I went through a long slog of a summer war with Gaza. It wasn't our first war in Israel, but it was the first one to physically reach us. It was the first time sirens had ever sounded in our area. And for a moment, we were baffled. But there was a shelter down the road, so we ran. They were little enough where when the sirens howled, I could pick them up, one under each arm, and run to that shelter 50 meters away. I remember we had this little backpack. It was pink. We filled it with Pringles and with water bottles, flaky Mekupelet chocolate. There was a deck of cards. My son brought his stuffed camel. My daughter brought her Ariel, the Little Mermaid doll. We would meet our neighbors in the shelter and would sing songs to keep the kids calm. We could protect them from the onslaught of news and the horrific images of houses burned, of this little boy murdered by Hamas rockets. We could at least do that with our silly songs and our Pringles and our stuffed animals and our card games. We kept their hearts safe from the hungry darkness. But then this one afternoon, we just didn't make it on time, and we hurtled to the earth. I covered their bodies with mine in the dust. I'll never forget the smell of smoke and the stink of feral fear as we lay there. But I was there, and I protected them. And they got up. We dusted ourselves off. We went to the shelter anyway, and we played Go Fish. But this time, they're teenagers. It was 9 years ago. I can't believe it. And in just a few short years from now, they'll get their army draft notices, and they'll put on combat boots and uniforms and dog tags and make a new family of brothers and sisters in arms. And this time is different. They can read the news and they understand the words, even if the situation is completely incomprehensible. They use social media. It's a necessity at their age. And I can't scoop them up and carry them to the shelter like I did then. I can't throw my body over theirs to protect their hearts from the onslaught of headlines and images they're seeing. Their phones are their lifeline to their friends. But they can also be such tools of destruction, pure psychological warfare, torture, as Hamas blasts out images of brutalized bodies, videos of half-naked women bleeding between their legs, bodies bent at impossible angles, men begging for their lives as the headlines flash across the screen, beheaded babies, 2 words that should never be in the same sentence ever, as their friends send stories and share their own horrible photos of the things that they're seeing and ask, hey, isn't this your friend's brother? Wait, don't we know her? I can't protect my kids now as I did back then, nearly a decade ago, during that long, awful summer. I can't cover my body to save them, but I can be there with them in the darkness. A safe shelter whenever they decide they need to run to me. A safe place to rest. It's Thursday, and the news out of Gaza and the ensuing social media onslaught is painful. And I'm trying to remember that 2 things can be true at the same time. Hamas slaughtered 1,300 innocent people, men, women, and children, in Israel in vicious, in the most inhumane, cruel ways possible. They raped, tortured, butchered everyday folks who were just waking up on a Saturday morning. You cannot negotiate with monsters, and they need to be eradicated. And there are innocent families in Gaza too, in so many ways also held captive by Hamas, including kids, who are now living in darkness and enduring Israeli reprisal airstrikes, and at this point have very little hope for a better future. And one day, we will need to rebuild bridges with the innocents who survived this war. I really know we aren't there yet. The pain is too thick. The fear is too suffocating. So for now, I'll try my best to remember that while we must do whatever it takes to protect our children, one day our children and their children will emerge from the rubble and need to rebuild. And today, I'm angry and I'm scared and I'm heartbroken. We now know that this Saturday that passed was the bloodiest day in Jewish history since the Holocaust. But outside in our streets, I see my own expression on the faces of strangers, the same fear and anger and heartbreak, and we don't have to explain or try to pretend to have it together in the supermarkets or at work. We can feel all the things we feel and feel them together, and that gives me a sense of kinship. We are one. And I see the messages of love and support coming in from all over the globe. You see us and you're speaking out. And in so doing, we are also one. And this is comfort. This is community. This is family. And this is holy. And even though I'm not okay, and I don't think I'm ever going to be okay, there is nowhere else I want to be right now. And I'm grateful that all of you are with me too. So thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer. And if I don't get to all your questions, I'll include my contact information in the chat, and you're welcome to reach out to me there.
Josh, do you want to moderate some questions or?
Sure, happy to. Sarah, thank you. Thank you for joining our community. Thank you for the strength that you're demonstrating for all of us, for our people. We are so grateful, and we are sending our support and love to you.
Thank you so much.
And all of our brothers and sisters in Israel. And I open this up for questions. I ask that if you can either raise a physical hand or raise a digital hand so that we can see you. I also want to make note that we are recording this, so just an awareness for folks as questions are being asked. Any questions for Sarah? Yeah, Carl, please.
Sarah, thank you for reminding us that there's poetry even now in Israel, not just war, not just death, not just impossible dilemmas, but poetry that can find the beauty even in that. My question, you can't. I just want you to help us think about this. What Hamas did was it's reaching. They wanted to explode with the maximum evil, the maximum destruction. They wanted to say evil can become almost boundless, and that's what we want. We want to inflict that on you, and we're very proud. We're very proud. Even the Nazis, who were so proud to hate Jews, were a little bit ashamed of killing in that way. So this is the beginning. And then what the two things that frighten me, one, Israel has to be strong enough to respond to this. And God forbid anything should stop that. But two, Omar might be there in Gaza. I mean, and you were saying it could bring about so much loss of decency and innocence. And the real problem is, I think that must have been what Hamas wanted, to strike, to make it necessary, really necessary, that Israel strike in such a way that the best people also die and suffer and preserve the hatred down the generations. I assume the idea is one day they'll be strong enough, if only they can hate us long enough. And I help what do you, I know that there isn't, it's not like you solve the problem now for us, but how do we even take it in? It's a strange strategy, a monstrous strategy. I can't take it in.
Carl, I wish I could tell you that you were wrong, but I think you're right in the way you spoke about it. It's very powerful and resonates deeply with how we are feeling over here in Israel. The news just broke on Times of Israel that Hamas is telling civilians not to evacuate to the south. They're very happy to watch their own people die. This is something that's unfathomable to us, especially in Judaism. We say if you save one life, it's as if you saved an entire universe, right? I mean, the human life we hold that to the highest, and we do everything we can to preserve that. I have a baby crying in the other room. Excuse me. His dad's not addressing it. I'll be right back. Just give me a second to see what's going on. Okay.
Can I bring in something from Torah study regarding this?
Oh, she's back.
Sorry, a lot of moving parts here in this family. So this is something we're all trying to reckon with, not only with with our own sense of insecurity, with the military that let us down on Saturday morning last week, but with this reality that the people that that Hamas is playing by that rules that are not part of our rule book, okay, and that the more casualties on their side as far as Hamas is concerned, the better for their cause, as you said, Carl. And I wish that weren't the case. That is, but I believe it is. And even those who don't die, who watch their friends and family and loved ones die, only hate us. And that, as you said, gets passed down through the generations. It's very, very, very hard to stop that. However, I'm an optimist. I identify in the on the left and in the peace camp and in the shared society camp even now. And while you can't negotiate with Hamas, and while I do believe they are monsters, there are so many good people from the Palestinian community, and it's incumbent on us when things begin to settle to remember to strengthen those connections of shared society here in Israel. And there are organizations that do that, like the Yad B'Yad school system, where Jews and Arab kids learn side by side, and they don't grow up thinking of the other, but as their classmate and as their friend. And so looking for ways to make that stronger and make that more widespread is going to be so important, because we need to care about each other on the ground. Givat Chaviva, another shared society organization up in the north, is another one that does really holy work in strengthening connections between Jews and Christians and Muslims. And tragically, Muhammad Darashe, many of you know his name, who's very involved in Givat Chaviva and speaks to Jewish organizations all around the world, including AIPAC, on their behalf. His son was tragically murdered on Saturday. He's a volunteer paramedic, Muslim, Palestinian citizen of Israel or Arab Israeli, depending on how he chose to identify. And when he heard about the attacks in Kibbutz Be'eri, he drove right down to try to heal the wounded and save lives. And Hamas shot him in cold blood and stole his ambulance and drove it back to Gaza and just left him on the ground. And his family just buried him yesterday. And yet they are still committed to building bridges between Arabs and Jews across the land. And I spoke with his father, with Muhammad, who's just under this pall of grief and experiencing the worst atrocity his family could ever face. And he said that he just makes him feel more committed than ever to looking for ways to strengthen our connections here between various religious groups in the land and keep those dialogue channels open. So that's what I'm going to choose to focus on when I'm done feeling the rage I'm feeling and the fear I'm feeling and the heartbreak. I'm going to let myself go through these this anger and anxiety and devastation. But eventually I do want to come out the other side and get back to work and strengthening our connection with and I'm in Jerusalem, so literally with my neighbors. Not quite there yet, but I will get there. Are there any other questions?
I think we have a hand raised. Rana, do you want to share?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. It's very important that we have a discussion with you, and I'm so sorry for what you and everybody else in Israel is going through. I recently read a translation. I assume it's a faithful translation of the Hamas charter, and it's pretty interesting. I'll call it that at the moment. And they, probably no surprise to you or many other people, they profess to believe in jihad. Jihad is the way, from what I read. And they believe that violence is the way, the only way. They want to destroy Israel. That was in the charter as I read it. And they don't believe in negotiation. They don't believe in negotiation or congresses or any such things that are normal ways to find a way to peace. And given that, I mean, I don't know how you'd negotiate with a terrorist organization in the first place, but given that, I find it interesting that I listened to National Public Radio, and the other day there was a reporter from NPR who was speaking with someone who was, they said was an expert on Hamas, and they called them a political party. I guess they're supposed to be a political arm and a military arm, they said, which that's just what they said. And I don't understand, I'm being polite, I don't understand how you're supposed to negotiate with a terrorist group who doesn't believe in negotiation. So how is there supposed to be some kind of peaceful resolution with this group?
Okay, sorry, I'm sorry, the baby's coming in here. Hold on. So, hi, I'm going to do my best to answer this very quickly, and then I'm going to have to hop off. Rana, thank you for your question. You can't negotiate with them at this point. I think in the past, maybe there were avenues for negotiation. I know my friend Gershon Baskin was working with them, negotiated the release of Gilad Shalit, who was a prisoner taken captive. And Israel paid a very heavy price in that negotiation. We freed Palestinian prisoners, many of whom went on to carry out more attacks on Israel or be involved in attacks. The rules are completely changed now. There is no negotiation with Hamas. That's why they have to be eradicated, as far as I'm concerned. And again, I'm saying this as a peacenik leftist, quote unquote, so-called hippie traitor, as the right wing used to call me. But there can be no mercy for Hamas. But again, we got to keep in mind there are innocent people in Gaza who in many ways are held captive by Hamas and who have, mothers just like me who are holding their babies and who are terrified. And so we have to try to hold those two truths at the same time, and it's excruciating. And I don't envy the political leaders who have to deal with all of that. Luckily, I'm just allowed to feel my feelings, which are complicated, but I don't have to make any policy decisions. But I can't negotiate with them. But again, we can only do things to strengthen shared society. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to go for this. You can see that it's bedtime, and my son's dad has done a remarkable job. At a certain point, I think we just lost you guys. At a certain point, the baby just can't cope. So thank you, everyone, and I'm sorry to have to sign off like this, but I appreciate your questions. And Mary, if you could put my WhatsApp number in the chat, then we can, that way anyone can reach out to me and we can talk further.
All right, Sarah, thank you so much. And maybe we can do it again, who knows, but we really appreciate it. And thanks for taking time with the family.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us.
We're here. Thank you for sharing your feelings and your
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I know it's not easy to be a Jew right now in the United States, and I'm thinking of all of you too. And I'm here to listen as well. Okay, it works both ways.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
So much gratitude, so much love.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right.
Let me see. I have to figure out how to. The window's closed.
We can take care of it, Sarah.
We can remove you from there.
Thank you. Kick me off.
Bye, Sarah.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions from here, if anyone cares.
So let's take a little bit more time for questions for Mary, and then if Judd's willing, or I don't know if you're willing and able, maybe we can, once after questions with Mary, we can wrap up. I think we need to wrap up with some sort of song or some sort of prayer. I think that would be important. So questions for Mary. Mary.
Yeah, I don't have any answers. I mean, I don't know what you have, but I'm happy to like here or something.
Reb Sherry has her hand raised.
No, I just want to keep going with what the last person brought up. It's in their charter. You know, how do you negotiate with them? I've explained to so many people who don't know about Israel or Jews or anything. I have so many friends that just don't have that knowledge, and how, you know, we're raised, and Israeli kids are raised with songs of peace, and for us, that's how children are raised, songs of peace. But they have Mickey Mouse, you know, that brainwashes little Palestinian children to grow up and kill Jews and Israelis. And when you're brainwashed to that extent, how do we rescue the innocent Palestinians that didn't do anything and still kill Hamas? And how do we negotiate with terrorists? I'm still at the same spot. I don't have an answer. I'm just still in the same place.
Well, my feeling is we shouldn't get bogged down with like the Hamas charter and stuff. It's just like it's so much bigger than that. I think it's a greater movement that it's not a liberation for Palestine. It's something that is um, probably is going to spread throughout the globe. Is my depressing personal thought. So a question of ethics and morals, and right now everyone is trying to bend their ethics and morals to the other side, and it's pretty impossible right now. But if in Israel right now, it's pretty it's pretty depressing. It's kind of like, you know, October 6th was the last day Israel was like it was, because it's not the same anymore, and it never will be. And that's what's so auspicious, is that Israel's changed forever, and we don't know what the future holds. I think people feel like they're fighting for their existence. Literally, we've said that so nonchalantly for like 75 years. Oh, Israel fights for its right to exist in a sort of political, either being political or ideological, but now it's real. You can feel it, helpful, and there's a eerie silence.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Rip Sherry, for the question. I think Jerry had a question too, or a comment.
I have to say something because it haunts me. I think there are 3 members of our Torah study group on the chat right now on Zoom, and we have themes that go through Torah study, and we frequently talk about kind of intention, and we talk interpretation. The world has changed so much since they. And, you know, how does the Torah answer? How can the Torah answer the questions? And I came across just a statement in my Chumash, you know, quite a while ago, maybe a couple of years ago, and I came across it today. It must be in Genesis because it was in part of the commentary today, and it said, I think it's from the Talmud, that one, because we talked about Cain and Abel, so it was probably, this commentary was probably in Bereshit. And it said that this, you know, somebody in the Talmud said, you cannot kill, you cannot take a life, even if it's you can't kill an innocent person. You cannot kill an innocent person, even if it means that, even if your survival is at stake. And you know, and so I go back to interpretation. I can't accept that. I can't accept that. No, you do have to save your own life. You have to save your people, your children, your family, and I like to think of we Jews as not that one bomb that's going into Gaza is retaliation. It's all self-defense.
Agreed. But we have to take, I personally, you know, it is self-defense, but how do you do it without, I mean, Carl, these are big questions for you. not me, about what is evil and who is evil and who isn't evil and why am I less evil than the other person? And I mean, I understand that's a radical concept, but that's what everyone is thinking in this space at the same time, not just our group here, but globally. And I don't have that answer.
We do talk a lot in Torah study about those cases of divine anger, where there's a feeling that a society is so wrong, it has to be destroyed. And I don't think there are countries like that, or races like that, or peoples like that. Of course not. But sometimes a culture, an organization forms itself, and its core is something destructive. What's drawing people together is itself destructive. And that doesn't mean you have to kill everyone, but you do have to dissolve it. There's something here that it seems to me has to be, if it can be dissolved, that's the only thing that will bring peace. You know, what would Mary, what would I think if my government, knowing that North Seattle was going to be bombed, told me to stay in the north and not walk to the south? I mean, it's a 6-hour walk, it's an 8-hour, and the government is telling me, no, stay there and be bombed, we need you to die. Well, like, for what would I think? And I mean, you cannot, I mean, there must be,
right, there's psychopathic death cults, but and I guess if I were the people in Gaza and they were telling me to stay, I mean, like Sarah's even written about this, and I thought she would maybe read it, but you know, they slit your throats if you don't do the right thing. So I mean, look at, I mean, it's just, this is probably not this is just such a big conversation, but you just look at people who are so afraid they didn't fight back, you know? They were so afraid they just went with Hamas. And so there's that element of fear that hangs over everybody. And there's an element of fear in everyone in Gaza. They don't like Hamas, but they don't want their throat slit either. So what do? I mean, if your government was telling you to stay put or you're going to die, which way do you want to die?
Mary, we have two hands that I see raised. Remy has a hand raised, and then
I don't
Bill.
talk to Carl, not me. I can't. I'm just not in a position to, not emotionally able to talk about this stuff right now.
Remy, do you want to bring up a question?
I'm not sure. My question was for Mary, and I'm not sure if you're saying you don't want questions.
No, I'm here, Mary.
Oh, okay. My question was, I guess I'm just wondering if you could what you would share that you feel like, because of having lived in Israel a lot and being present in Israel now, that we are not aware of, you know, that like maybe, that's what I'm wondering. It feels like you have a very robust sense of what's going on that I feel like, you know, when I just read about it, I'm not there, I'm not present. I've only visited once. So I'm just wondering what you could share a little more around what we might be missing because we're not there, or because we haven't been there, what's changed, or what you feel.
What people in the United States don't know is they don't come from a country in conflict all the time. And what's really, and I'm sure you've read about it, are all the reservists coming up. Like tonight, I actually ventured down to the beach and I saw two young guys, kind of chit-chatting, smoking cigarettes next to the car, but both of them were each holding a big pile of their army fatigues, you know, so they were probably going off to reserves. And it's this culture of unification and it's also this culture of conflict that is so strange to Americans and to the Western part of the world. That is why the protests are happening in the West. And so many of these just vexing pro-Hamas protests are happening with privileged Americans and Brits, because they have no idea. They have no idea what it's to live in a country where you are in the army and you're constantly at war. And it's a really visceral feeling that I can't describe. And right now, when I flew in, it's like, here's a good little nugget. More people are flying in than flying out right now. And that just shows the strength of Israel. I was just sent a video to Josh and Judd of Eric Adams' speech in New York City. And I was just cried when I listened to it. I don't know if I mean, you may not care for him or police or whatever, but his this is our fight too speech. When I was hearing fighter jets going over my apartment, it was just astounding, stunning that he said, your fight is our fight. And that's something that people in the US don't get. At least some people do, you guys do, but most people don't get that your fight is our fight. And that's what I was talking about, that this is more than just the Hamas charter. This is more than just territory and borders and settlements. And that is nothing. They don't care about that. They don't care about Palestinians at all. In fact, I just got a notice on my phone that Hamas is stopping all the flow of Palestinians out into Egypt. So there's just this culture of unification and dedication and loyalty to your country. Even if you hate the government, even if you hate Netanyahu, you're there. So it's awe-inspiring and scary at the same time.
Thanks, Mary. I think Bill had a question, and Remy, thanks for your question. Bill, do you want to come in and ask your question?
Not necessarily a question, but maybe a statement.
Please.
I heard a quote this week that to me is sort of simple, but it sort of summarized the moral dilemma that we all feel now about the Palestinians and Hamas and the Gaza. And it said basically, if you're kind to the cruel, eventually you'll need to be cruel to the kind.
Yeah, Bill, it's amazing you're bringing that up. My Rebbe shared that with me. That I think is a Talmudic piece, right? If you have loving kindness for the wicked, eventually you will be wicked to the kind. Yeah. Well,
So
thank you, Bill.
How are you guys feeling? How are things in your local world? Has anyone reached out to you, or have you had any counter opinions? Or...
Carl, I think you're leaning in, but you're muted.
I went to the Seattle synagogue last night, and there at you would find people who are, far too willing to take the position that Israel is half wrong or more than half wrong or the real cause of the problem, and yet that wasn't said, and there was a sense of having to process an unexpected and overwhelming horror. So it was not as evasive as I thought it might be. And I just wanted to say too, I've received calls from really quite a few people who would normally not be as sympathetic to Israel as I would like, but they were concerned. They wanted to know how I was doing. They may be processing something they had not realized before.
I think I shared this with the Torah study group. So folks know we held this Torah study in person. Brad and I are the only ones here, and we have this beautiful group in Zoom. But we have security here today just because of the the last week and yesterday. And so two of our security guards were here, a husband and a wife. And then as I stepped out with Brad to look at the eclipse, there were two other in-force officers who had parked their vehicles in front of our center and were standing right out in front. And they looked at us and they said, "We care about you and we're here to support you." And so I think that's an important thing to know in our community as well.
I've had a lot of people reach out. I know, Judd, Judd, you have some interesting comments. Are you there? He had some good comments, but I think he's being shy about his thoughts on this. I've had great outreach from people I haven't talked to in 20 years. And that's really nice. And I think it was another thing Sarah said, there's just here's another thing that's just been on my mind a lot, is the math. And the math is that there's what, 15 million Jews on the planet. And there's like 3 billion people that hate us. How are we going to overcome that? What are we going to do? It's just mind-boggling. I mean, you can think in biblical terms if that helps, but this is reality right now. So.
They're confused and ambivalent, Mary. I don't think in most cases, they're confused and ambivalent because of a 2,000-year history, which is confusing.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of you to put it that way, Carl.
Yeah, it's very kind. I mean, Hamas didn't seem very confused.
No. I'm not excluding. I'm excluding the lunatics, but you said 3 billion people who hate us.
Well, I mean, I just think that might be accurate. I mean, what is there, 7 billion on Earth? And there's, I don't know. I don't think they hate us, but they wouldn't mind if we disappeared.
Rana, I saw a hand raised.
Sure. If this is, I thought I'd put in something a little more positive. I'm on an email group with some folks from Detroit whose family members came from what's now in Ukraine, a little town, Gubernia Berzhenets, where my grandparents came from. And the fellow who's the head of that group sent a link to a meeting that was in Sharet Tzedek synagogue right after the attacks started. And I watched it the other night, and they had a big Jewish community meeting at Sharet Tzedek. I don't know how many people were there, a couple hundred, I think. And it was a really wonderful program. It was a great program, and they had great attendance. The Jewish community had raised at that point about $1.5 million to support Israel. I think by the time I watched it, it was about $2.5 million to support Israel, which was terrific. And among the people who came up and spoke was Governor Whitmer. She came to Detroit and she spoke, and she unequivocally supported Israel, and she unequivocally called Hamas terrorists. And it was just great that the governor came and gave that support, along with other speakers too. They also had some students from Israel there who spoke and gave statements from friends of theirs. They also had videos from Israel of people who were in the reserves, who were in the IDF, who were just normal people. And it was really, really heartening to have such great support all around. So some good community was shown there. It was terrific.
In our morning prayer, Rana, in follow-up to what you're sharing, in our morning prayers, we've been doing daily minyan through this week, and I will share that we're going to continue that. I talked to the folks who have been consistent. We'll continue that. We're going to move it, Brad. We were hoping to move it to 7 a.m. starting on Monday, and it's going to be a 15-minute morning prayer if folks need a foundation of the day. So please join us if that's something that you'd like. It'll be meditative and also space for some of our core liturgy. I also, in our morning prayer session, as we were grappling with some of these conversations of a feeling of support or a feeling of being alone, one of our congregants shared a message that he got from one of his friends who's Catholic, and there was 5,000 Catholics marching in the streets of New York. And so I think there are a lot of these pieces that are coming out of people demonstrating support. And as Carl said, there may be a lot of Carl, I think the words you used were ambivalence or confusion, and Mary, like as we've shared, right? There are those that are demonstrating hatred, and so I have gotten a lot of support and a lot of text from folks that I similarly have not heard of or from in a long time, and so I think there is a lot of. I hope that there is a lot of support in our communities, and I think part of what I'm feeling after hearing Sarah talk too is the importance, as each one of us is here, to figure out how we can bring this message out into the world as well, right? Who are we talking to? How do we share in our communities with our friend groups, so that we can continue to build the network of support that I think is so necessary at this time, not just with amongst our chevre, but a broader network of people who can see this and support.
What's bothering me is trying to convey this, and I just run into how you feel, and I think a lot of people are just using very, I think somebody said purple language, which is very sort of vague and both sides kind of language. And you should watch Eric Adams' speech, because he talks about how angry we should be. We should be outraged, not inspired, and not, we should be outraged. And that's what's hard to be. Hard to be like that around your friends, even your family. It's hard to be outraged all the time. And right now we need to be outraged all the time. And because you sound like sound extreme, and you made out to sound extreme. So I'm grappling with that.
Thanks, Mary. Let's, if there's any other comments or questions, let's maybe take time for one or two more, and then if Judd's able to, maybe we can wrap up with a song or a prayer. Any other questions from Mary? Any other comments? Mary, thanks for, it's late your time. Thank you so much for so many things, for the strength that you display on a consistent basis in leading our community. Thank you for being here with us, even though you are there in Tel Aviv. Thank you for bringing Sarah to our community and her wisdom and her words, and bringing her into our community more directly, and not only to our brothers and sisters in Israel, but to you, Mary. We are sending so much love and support and prayers for protection at this time, and are grateful for you as one of our leaders of this community, and all you do for us, from when you're halfway across the world. Yeah.
Sometimes probably a little too much.
What's that?
It's probably sometimes a little too much. I'm always texting Josh and Brad all hours of the night.
It's wonderful. Judd, are you able to hop on and lead us in a final song or prayer? And if not, Judd,
Sure.
There you are. Yeah.
I think you disabled my video. Was I picking my nose or something?
No, it was in your pocket and it was moving around and making me a little motion sick. Hold on, I'll ask to start your video here. Try that now.
Okay, well that's a relief on my end. I thought that was a really powerful reading by our guest. That was really amazing, and intense, and a great discussion. I'm just always glad to be with our community. Kol balevav panima nefesh yehudi omiya ulfateh mizrach kadima ayin Tzion Sophia Olo avda tikvatenu התקווה בת שנות 2000 להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים להיות עם חופשי בארצנו ארץ ציון וירושלים.
Thank you, Judd. Thank you, Mary. I'll work with Brad and Mary to send out a link so we can continue to meet on a daily basis. If you need some rooting in our foundations of our liturgy and in community, we'll meet 7 to 7:15 for morning minyan on Zoom, and we'll get that going starting on Monday. And I just want to share, if anyone needs to talk to folks, I think there's a lot of people within this community. If you want a space to express any of the emotions you're feeling, feel free to reach out to any of us and each other to support each other through this time and to support our brothers and sisters in Israel. And we're grateful that we continue to gather and demonstrate the bonds of love and support and courage and conviction as a community. I can't express in words how grateful I am to be a part of this Jackson Hole Jewish community and share my gratitude and my love. Thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Thanks, Judd. Thanks, Jerry. Jerry, refuah shlema to Barbara. Mark gave me an update yesterday. Is she feeling okay today?
Yeah, I think she's doing okay. She's got a cough and she's feeling a little ill, like a bad cold, but okay.
Okay. Would you give her my love?
I will, Josh.
Okay.
Love to you and all of you.
Okay. Love you, Jerry. Bye.
Gotta close this out.
I got you.